Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to my YouTube channel, Cooking with Chef Mark. And I'm here in the laboratory with a furious rant. And I'm going to talk about the biggest mistake I've ever made with a knife. I've got this knife here that I love. This is a Wusthof. I enjoy Wusthof. They're generally excellent. I do everything with this knife. Probably 95% of my prep work with this is a 10-inch chef knife. I like kind of more the pointed edge of a Wusthof as opposed to kind of the rounded tip like you might find on a Zwilling, other styles of knives. And Wusthof certainly makes those, and they're not bad, but just for myself, for what I'm accustomed to over 30 years in the business, I like kind of that arrow-shaped knife. Maybe there's a different description for that, but it's generally very well balanced. It is light, but not so light that the weight of the knife helps do some work. It's a full tang. It's that P-Tex handle, so I run it through the dishwasher after I'm done prepping. I like the bolster here where it's forged, and this is very comfortable when I hold the knife. I find that I don't get a hot spot here, even though there's a little bit of an edge to the top of the knife. I've had this knife for years, so it's actually maybe worn off just a little bit. So generally an excellent knife. So where did I make a mistake? Well, let me tell you a little story. Years ago, I was working in a restaurant in Pittsburgh. I was going to culinary school. I was a young culinarian, and I was bending lettuce. I was working the pantry station, and just kind of getting my butt kicked every night. I wasn't a very good employee. I wasn't a very good cook. I chose this career because I really wasn't college bound, and it just seemed like really a good match for me at the time. And we got a new chef. New chef comes in, and he's a mountain of a man. He's huge. He's, I don't know, 6'8", 300 pounds, not, fit, big guy. And he had a big knife. He had a huge Wusthof. And I'm a Wusthof fan, always have been. Even when I was in culinary school, 18, 19 years old, I kind of coveted these knives, but certainly couldn't afford one. I just used the knife that I had in my knife kit, which was fine, but not excellent. So he had this huge knife, and he was being a mountain man. He would use his knife, and it just looked normal in his hand. And he would swing this knife with ease, and I was very impressed with him, his knife skills, his command of the kitchen. Obviously a professional. Fast forward years and years and years later, and I get one of these knives, and here it is. So this is a big knife. This is a huge knife. This thing is 12 inches long, the blade. It's extremely thick. Look at the difference about the thickness, like how wide this is. And it's also very, very, very heavy. Oh gosh, I used to know this, but I think this is 12 ounces, so a little less than a pound. This is 2.5 pounds. So it's a massive knife. And in this chef's hands, it looked like a normal knife. In mine, it is completely unreasonable. This part of the handle is so large that it's kind of unruly. And then look the thickness here. When I go to grab the knife with my pinch grip, I feel like I'm trying to pinch two knives. And then being so thick, it actually is hard to sharpen because there's so much swing weight. Like if I'm sharpening on stone, it's okay, but if I'm using a steel to sharpen this knife, there's so much swing weight that it's hard to do accurately with any speed and any finesse. So I had this opportunity to get this knife. I was working at a restaurant supply store, and somebody ordered one of these knives, not knowing that it was completely unreasonable. This is the 12-inch heavy-duty Wusthof, and I think it's the heavy-duty where I went wrong. And they got the knife and they returned it, and then it showed up and it was sitting on the counter, and the manager said, "Hey, do you want to buy this knife at a generous discount?" There was $600 for this knife, and I certainly didn't pay that much. Probably never would treat myself to a $600 knife, particularly something that was basically unusable. So I'll take that off your hands. But to get the knife, it had to get shipped to corporate, get R8, I don't know, something, and then shipped to my house. And that reduces like theft in a retail environment. That makes sense to me. So it gets shipped out, it gets shipped to my house, it shows up, I'm all excited, I open the box, I know it's gonna be huge, and I still haven't picked it up, and I pick up the knife and I'm like, oh my gosh, I made the biggest mistake. What am I gonna do with this? It's a waste of money. Well, I use this knife all the time, and the benefit to using such a large knife, particularly when I'm in cooking classes, is I give everybody a 10-inch chef knife for knife skills, and a large knife like this will intimidate most home cooks that don't have knife skills. They think this is too big, I'm going to hurt myself. But by holding a knife that is this ridiculously big, cartoonishly large, what I've discovered is that my students then grab this knife and they just use the knife without hesitation, without thinking to myself, this knife is too big. Because if this knife, which is a giant, I mean, it's so big I'm having trouble getting it in the screen here for you to see, it's something that Chef Mark can use, then here we go. You know, this knife seems completely reasonable. Sometimes I'll give students an 8-inch chef knife, which comes down to more like here. But I think a 10-inch chef knife is really the right tool for the job for 99% of jobs in the kitchen. So, big mistake buying this knife? Absolutely. Have I made the best of it? Yeah, I sure have. I've learned to use the knife. I can brunoise, I can dice, I can chop. And honestly, I bring it with me if I'm doing a lot of production, if I have a big party or something. Because, you know, we cut everything by hand in the kitchen so that we have precision and we have, at least I do, cut everything by hand in kitchens that I've run and I still do. So maybe not the best tool for dicing an onion, but certainly a great tool for, oh, I gotta bang out a case of peppers and onions for a fajita station. The weight of this knife just kind of helps with the swinging. I don't have to, you know, use as much of my forearms and my muscles. I just kind of just leave the tip of the knife on the board and just go to town. So it's a good processor. And it's also a good conversation piece. I actually jokingly refer to these knives with names. So this is Stabatha, and this is Leviathan. And when I do cooking classes, people kind of get a kick out of the fact that I have named my knives. Maybe you should name your knife. I don't know. So leave in the comments what you think about a knife that's too big. Maybe you bought a kitchen knife before that you regret buying. What would I have done with the money otherwise? I don't know, maybe grab a couple more reasonably sized knives. Now that I own it, do I love it? Yeah, I love it, but I love it as a novelty. I don't love it because it's the best tool in the tool chest. It makes a good conversation piece. It makes a good teaching aid, but it's not a great kitchen knife. If I had to do it over again, I would still get 12-inch Wüsthof, but I wouldn't get the heavy-duty version. They actually make a knife one size larger than this, and it's called a lobster knife. And it's this big and heavy, but it has a relatively dull edge, and it's for cracking open lobster shells at like a clam bake. I worked at a country club. We had like a beach house. We would do lobster bakes on the sand in Long Island. That was really exciting. And they were kind of a specialty knife. This is probably the same, I don't know, mold as the lobster knife, being so thick. It's basically like a cleaver that's been sharpened, that's chef knife shaped. So the non-heavy duty version, I understand. I haven't seen one, but I understand the thickness here. It's much thinner, it's much more reasonable. The handle, I think, is a little smaller. I think that's the big thing, is where this handle fits in my hand just right. I mean, it just, you know, I can make this thing sing and dance all day long. This handle is a little ridiculous. So, not saying it's a bad knife, just saying that it's maybe a novelty. It's maybe a little overkill for the average Joe, and maybe even the average professional. All right, well, that's Furious Rant. This is my first Furious Rant. It's a new video I'm going to try out, give you guys my opinions about what I see happening in the industry, equipment that I use, techniques that I use, and then things I don't like spending a lot of money on a knife that doesn't work great. Buy the right size tool. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. All right, everyone. Before I tune out, make sure you subscribe. I'll wait. Thank you. And click the like button. I really appreciate that. Thanks for tuning in. This is Chef Mark with Furious Rant.